You're watching Sky News at 10 with our press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. And joining us tonight to take a look at those headlines, The Independent's Christina Patterson and historian and author and broadcaster Kate Williams. Multi-talented, both of you, of course. Our top stories first here on Sky News. The east coast of America trying to get back to some kind of normality after Hurricane Sandy struck 3 days ago. This, the scene on Staten Island, where 14 people were killed when the storm surge swept through, carrying houses along with it. Freddie Starr's been arrested on suspicion of sexual offences. He's now being questioned by officers investigating the allegations of sex abuse against Jimmy Savile. And the family of a serving prison officer who was murdered on his way to work in Northern Ireland have appealed for there to be no retaliation. David Black worked at a prison where dissident Republican inmates had been protesting against jail conditions there. Well, those are the headlines tonight. What of tomorrow's with the front pages? We'll start with the Daily Star, which has Starr, the comedian Freddie Starr, being arrested, they say, in the Jimmy Savile abuse investigation. He's also on the front of the Mirror, with Scotland Yard saying the line of inquiry falls under Savile and others. The Mail too has a photo there of Freddie Starr after his arrest, that taken earlier, though, with his fiancée. The main story, though, the increasing number of middle-aged men and women living alone, now almost 2.5 million in the UK, says the paper. In the wake of Hurricane Sandy, New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg's thrown his support behind Barack Obama. A blow to Romney hopes, says the front of The Guardian. The Eye says the exam regulator Ofqual's labelled teachers as cheats after a report into the GCSE fiasco found widespread abuse of the examination system in order to top grades, but that's been challenged by head teachers. In the Telegraph, millions of savers seeing the predicted value of their retirement pots plunging after the financial regulator ordered pension firms to cut their growth forecasts due to the continuing global economic slowdown. And the medicines regulator is concerned that people taking statins to ward off heart attacks and strokes are now at risk of serious side effects. That's on the front of the Express. So what do our guests make of that? And I think you're going to start with perhaps let me take a look. The Eye, Ofqual, exam cheating, discuss maybe. This is the, well, continuing story of it was, I think, January, the original exams, or the mocks, and then the main exam in May, June, with a huge gulf between the marking.
Well, it looks as though this has been about the coursework, actually, and that because obviously GCSEs are made up partly of coursework and partly of exams, and it looks as though, although we haven't seen the report yet because I think it's embargoed till midnight, it looks as though teachers are being accused of having bumped up the grades to get better results, and hard to know what's going on. Teachers are obviously furious. Head teachers are furious. They are saying that it's an insult to the integrity of the profession. But the whole thing has been thrown up in the air by Michael Gove's changes, and it does seem to be a bit of a mess all round.
Well, it was the teachers originally pointing the finger at Ofqual, saying they changed the parameters.
Banders. Initially, what you needed to get the same mark in the summer was not the same as January. So exactly the same answers, the same exam script would have got a much better mark in January than summer. And the teachers were suggesting this was because they were trying to fill the quota of marks. And obviously, we haven't seen the report yet because, as Christina says, it's not out yet. We can't see it till midnight. But I'm very concerned about this. I think, we've got a lot of hard-working teachers in this country, a lot of hard-working head teachers, and the suggestion that, they're marking coursework wrongly, I don't see why they'd suddenly do this year, I think.
And why across the board? I mean, are they alleging that there's some kind of conspiracy, that everyone's cheating together? And it's saying here, regulator alleges loss of integrity in profession. Is there a similar loss of integrity in the regulator if this has been allowed to go on?
This competition between them, and I mean, obviously Michael Gove has got all kinds of plans about what he's going to do to our education system, and I'm very concerned that we do keep some measure of coursework, because I think that pure exams are not a fair system. I know people say that coursework, people can cheat on it and they can use the internet and all the rest of it, but I think it's very important that we show the students doing longer projects. I think it's vital.
And what's your view in particular of the teaching of history at the moment?
Well, history is changing a lot. I mean, you know,
Kings and Queens any longer, is it?
History is changing. It's coming off the syllabus. And what's fascinating to me is the surge of interest in popular history of the
Social
Tudors,
history.
the social history, the books, the films. So much more of it was in school. It is dropping. And I meet these teachers all the time who say to me, you know, they are supposed to be teaching the Great War in a couple of hours. And how is that even possible? So I think that, I mean, to me, of course, history is a vital subject and it's absolutely crucial. And we should be learning it to 16. And it's a vital part of our curriculum. And within that, I think coursework is very important. A wider historical project for the student, I think, really brings up their skills.
As my history teacher reflected, you can only tell where you are from where you've been.
Where you've been. I mean,
which is, you know...
We learn from our history, you know, that there were banking explosions in the 18th century. We never learned from them.
The South Sea Bubble. And
Exactly.
OK, let's move on to, well, talking financial problems. The Telegraph has got another story about pensions, the continuing tale of woe for pensions. And we were reflecting earlier, I mean, we're now talking about the baby boomer generation coming through to pensionable age. So it's going to affect a big, big demographic part of Britain.
Well, there is never, ever, ever any good pension news.
Ever.
No.
Not anymore. It's all over.
And this is sort of seriously shocking because they are saying that the predicted growth rates are 40%, are going to have to be adjusted down by 40%, which means, I think that they say that somebody who was predicted a pension of about 10 grand a year will now be getting about 6 grand a year, which, you know, A, isn't very much, and B is, you know, yeah.
It's a huge stat, and when you think that, I mean, my estimation is by the time I retire, there won't be probably any state pension left, or if there is, it'll be heavily means tested, and so very few people will get it. And I think of a lot of my parents' generation, they retired very young, and they've had a great life of, you know, going on cruise ships and going on lots of holidays.
Not
and having
for the likes of us,
I think that no, things are going to be a bit different. I just think that the pensioners have been a great consumer of art and literature, and they've done a lot of work for charity.
But there's an interesting political question here, and that is that the older people become, the more determined they are to go out and vote.
Yes.
And if there is a disaffected section of the population that's growing in numbers that's going to be affected by this, they will make their voice known at the ballot box, won't they?
Well, they will, but it's very difficult. Politicians are very reluctant to alienate pensioners precisely for that reason. I mean, that's probably the main reason they won't cut things like the winter fuel allowance. But I mean, you know, you've got to have the money to keep pensions going, and you know, there clearly isn't very much money around, so not looking good.
Yeah, talking to someone who's, well, doesn't quite look pensionable age, as a royal historian. What about this image?
Well, Charles is going to be working forever, isn't he?
Yeah, Charlie Davidson.
However old he comes into that job, he could be our oldest new starter if he has to start at 80.
But he's looking jolly spruce,
he looks quite at ease there, though, doesn't he, on the Harley Davidson?
Well, his mother still is a very effective driver. Of course, she was a mechanic in the war. She is one of the fastest drivers you can meet, and she whizzes around Balmoral as fast as you like.
And can dismantle the front axle of a Bedford truck.
Pretty fast, Don't try and outspanner the Queen. She'll beat us all. So he's probably inherited her, you know, her dexterousness with the spanner. But you know, I remember when I was in India seeing all sorts of people riding around the Himalayas on these Harley Davidson and seeing the scenery. I could see Charles doing that.
They're very beautiful.
Charlie Davidson.
Yeah, so he's looking rather wistful, thinking, I wish I could just go for a blast on this, but...
freedom.
I've got to be Prince of Wales instead.
Yes, exactly, but there we are. The suit doesn't quite match the... Anyway. Taking a look, however, at the Freddie Starr story, which is across the front pages of many papers. You've gone for the Star. Comic star nicked by Savile sex probe cops. And it's reflecting that this is Operation Yewtree, which is the whole Savile investigation.
They said quite a long time. They said quite recently that everyone needed to be aware that they were going to come for more people, and of course this is linked to the fact that Jimmy Savile's estate's now been frozen because there are going to be compensation claims upon it, and even the charities are now not quite sure what they're going to do with the money. I mean, this is changing everything. And Freddie Starr himself said that, you know, the police didn't want to talk to him last week. That it wasn't, but it looks as if he's won, and there will be more to come. It's not just him. Yeah, well, it's just it's on the front there of the Mirror, and a picture of him with his fiancée there in front of the Mail as well. And even making some of the heavyweights as well. So we'll see what emerges. He's still being questioned at a police station tonight. Innocent till proven guilty.
Innocent till proven guilty. And as you say, elsewhere, 400 separate lines of inquiry with detectives and 300 possible victims. Those are
300
the
possible
facts and
victims.
figures.
Yeah,
tonight.
over
it's
decades.
going to run and run, this one.
And of course, some of the victims may, of course, be dead. I mean, these are the ones who are still living.
That's actually an interesting fact, isn't it? If they're going back to the 1970s, and yeah, that could well be.
And people who are possibly in hospital as well. It's the fact that these ones are the ones who have survived.
I think what will be, I suspect that what will emerge that is going to be really ghastly is the sense of paedophile rings operating, because paedophiles very rarely,
if it's organised,
they very rarely operate, on their own. And I think, I think Tom Watson last week mentioned the possibility of something linked to a prime minister, and this could be. Well, I suspect there's a lot more horrible
Prime Ministerial aid, to be specific about it, yeah, rather than. Right, we've got the Express, it's going with a health story, but this is an interesting volte-face, if you like, because not so long ago, they were actually trumpeting statins as one of the new wonder drugs.
Wonder drug. Go to your doctor, get statins.
Yeah, everyone over 50 should be prescribed them.
The Express leads always on health stories, and this one I think is important because we were, a lot of people were told take statins. It's good for you. You'll lower your cholesterol. You'll lower your risk of heart disease, and all cardiologists have told me that
nothing's gone wrong. I mean, everything. There are gains and losses with everything. It's a bit like the breast screening thing. Some people had unnecessary treatment, but on balance, the view with breast screening was that on balance it's worth it, and I think it's the same with this. On balance, the advice is still to take statins, but
however,
to cut the dosage.
You look at the list here from the medicines regulator, concerned that some could suffer agonising muscle problems, lung disorders and kidney damage.
Well, it's not
That's
ideal.
Not exactly
it's not ideal.
Light rash,
I think this is the thing, isn't it? That every drug, no matter how much of a wonder drug, has a side effect. Even paracetamol have side effects, and this is something that we enter into. We always have to remember when we take a drug that it has side effects, and so I think this is the key point here, that perhaps people who might be taking it in a preventative way, who don't necessarily have high cholesterol and are just taking it anyway, perhaps need to reconsider
so
their dosages.
that wonder pill we were talking about might not actually come about, where you just take it as a matter of course over 50 and it'll ward off all sorts of ills.
I don't think there is such a thing, very sadly.
Exclusive, Kate Williams, police guard quizzed in gun drama. Should we be rather concerned about that, or is it just a bit of a
I don't know anything about the story on that.
Well,
one.
I presume one of their guards there's been some kind of fracas and he's removed it, taken his gun.
Because they do try and keep themselves out of the headlines when they're not on royal duty, don't they? So.
Yes, I think that, I mean, this is either a personal story or something. So I think that we probably don't need to be too concerned. I mean, the royals we know have safety officers who stick by them right till the end, even if it comes to going to Las Vegas hotel rooms. Well, as we saw with a very good documentary on the George Medal recipients, which was very interesting. The Princess Anne, of course, was
yes,
of course, Princess Anne. It was almost when her suffering her kidnap attempt. She was.
Gun was discharged,
exactly,
and the Royal Bodyguard took the bullet. Yeah. Coming up on our press preview, hard to swallow. The taxpayers' money, and we've been talking about all sorts of matters of pensions as well, being spent on a stuffed anaconda, thanks to William Hague. We'll be discussing that in a moment. Snakes alive, as they say. Welcome back to our press preview and all the front pages as they come in. Joining us, Christina Patterson from The Independent and historian and author Kate Williams. Welcome once more. As we head inside the Daily Express to page 4, at the top there, Christopher Tappin, who's this businessman extradited to the US, and let's just see him there in reflective mood because he pleaded his innocence but now is pleading guilty.
Well, I mean, it's a remarkable insight into the American system, actually, because he was looking at a possible sentence of 35 years when he was pleading innocent. And now that he's pleading guilty, they're talking about a 33-month sentence, which he might even be able to serve here. So it's
or
quite
the fact
a
he's been in custody already, so he may have served that time. But the whole argument was about allegedly these missile parts to Iran, and he was saying, well, actually, there were batteries, and I didn't know what they were for.
I didn't know what they were. For all I know, they were just off to be used in computer games. But I think this is often the defence, isn't it, of people who are caught saying, oh, well, they were just pipes. I didn't know what they were. They were just this kind of gun thing. I didn't know. I mean, I mean, you know, one has to wonder how someone could not know if you are making these parts, how you not know what they are.
Here's the other consideration in the final paragraph. Tappin's UK lawyer Karen Todner said 98% of people who enter the US justice system agree a plea.
Extraordinary. It's such a different system, isn't it? I mean, that's
what's the
really
point?
extraordinary. Yeah.
Well, and it's very fascinating,
quite.
those people who won't be extradited there, of course. I mean, we've seen repeated people who won't be extradited to the US because they feel it won't be fair. And if it's true that 98%...
Theresa May declining to extradite someone to face the US judicial
Abu
system.
Hamza should clearly have gone years ago. You know, he might.
Well, depends what he's trying to...
Assuming he's done something wrong, which of course we can't, but yes.
Yeah, well, we'll see what due process in the US courts come up with on that matter. But let's move on to interesting story for the Mail. I guess, again, they're looking towards their constituency, if you like. Lonely UK.
Yes,
Daily
fascinating
Mail.
story.
Decline of marriage left ever-increasing numbers of middle-aged men and women living alone.
Well, I love the tone of this. The army of such loners has grown by more than 50%. Talks about the rise in rapid rise in middle-aged loners. I know, they're talking about this, so it's complete tragedy.
School, and, you know, have to go on holiday during half term and whatever.
This is it. I mean, it's obviously it's saying here, you know, it's quite sad, and it's saying because middle-aged people can't find relationships, and it's saying here that because middle-aged women with good qualifications and jobs have little interest in forming relationships with lower-earning men. Apparently, that's one of the problems, according to the Mail, which is a quite classic Mail theme. But I think this is an interesting question here, because increasingly in this country we have got more single households, and yet the picture that we have of Britain, when it's talking about advertising, voters, everything, it's the family. It's mum, dad, 2 kids, and married in the estate car and the dog.
Yeah.
And
everything
they may
is changing.
Well put their finger on it there. Well over, or more than 1 million couples are thought to be living apart together to secure the highest possible tax credits and benefits. i.e. they're playing the system, and who can blame them?
That is quite a high figure, but it's hard to think that would account. My understanding is about 1/3 of households are now single adult households.
Right.
And certainly the way politicians talk, you would never think that was the case. Everything's about hard-working families, which you know seems to suggest that children go up chimneys or something.
Unless you want your child credit if you're earning quite a lot of money. I mean, that does seem bizarre that someone can be earning almost 100,000 from 2 salaries and receive full child allowance, but if one person earns the same amount, they get 0.
Yes,
it's true.
I know.
It's true. But I mean, how they know, how they are, it's thought to be well over 1 million couples are thought to be living apart together. I mean, obviously, these people could all be prosecuted.
That's a lot of researchers
so
out on the streets.
how on earth do they know?
Peeking behind
how do they know
curtains.
that's quite a lot of the population.
This is the classic Mail,
But I think this is an important thing to remember, that this country is changing, and as we all grow older, I think this is increasingly why we will be living alone for longer.
But it's not looking good. We've got no pension. We've got no pension, and we're going to be very lonely. So,
right. And if you put on weight, you're even more trouble, according to the Telegraph. We go back to the front page of the Telegraph, because they've got this extraordinary story: obese patients to have scans.
At the zoo. At zoos.
So what's happening here?
I have to say, as someone who does have to have scans quite often because of health problems in the past, it might cheer you up to go to the zoo. It would certainly make a change from going to the hospital.
What, you can enjoy yourself with an outing as you go to get scanned.
And have an ice cream. And
it's like those plastic surgery holidays. People used to go off on a safari and then get some plastic surgery. Yeah. But I've weighed myself at London Zoo, actually, because you can weigh, you know, those great big Galapagos turtles. You can weigh yourself next to them, see if you weigh as much as them. So I'm on the way.
And did you weigh as much as the Galapagos turtle?
Not quite. I had a few ice creams, though, you know, upped it a bit.
Well, here we are. This is the sort of cut-off. Investigations by surgeons in North Bristol found only 1 in 6 hospitals had access to MRI or CAT scanners capable of taking the heaviest patients weighing more than 35 stone.
I mean, actually, this is a funny story, but it's also a terrible story, actually, because what it's talking about, I mean, they're having to have massive stretchers in ambulances now, reinforced chairs. I mean, you know, the whole of the Western world is getting extremely fat, and it will probably bankrupt the NHS.
Obesity has soared. I mean, because it's obviously very different in the old days. This is the point. The NHS was created to treat conditions such as heart disease, which were very different. Obesity, you can be obese for your whole life, and it can cause all kinds of problems. And there's a whole question of who does and who doesn't qualify for gastric band surgery. And the Express is also saying that, you know, nearly 9,000 obese patients a year are having NHS surgery for weight loss, and that's very, Very
well, this is,
concerning.
as we all know, it's a lifestyle issue, but it is also, unfortunately, very often a poverty issue,
Right.
which is...
OK, on to Express page 3, and it's not that lady at the top. You've gone for the bald man with the snake at
Yes.
the bottom. Tell us about William Hague and an anaconda?
Called Albert.
Albert?
Albert, the anaconda. He is in the Foreign Office library and he's been looking a bit threadbare recently, and so he's had to be restuffed by experts at a cost of £10,000, which of course has got the taxpayers'
£10,000?
alliance very across.
What are they stuffed in with? Caviar?
Well, you know, I stuffed a few snakes in my youth with kind of, you know, bits of cotton wool and bits of cotton wool and woolly
put that
things.
on Facebook, did you?
I could make a good draft
I'd have thought you
excluder.
could stuff Tutankhamun for 10 grand. I mean, this is, you know...
It's a very precious snake,
their
though.
defence is it was given to the colonial sector in the 19th century by a bishop in Guyana. Hence, they've got a duty of care as a gift. So they've got to look after it.
Well,
Queen
did they
Victoria-
put it out to tender? This is what we want to know.
Yeah. What's the contract, you know, for stuffing an
but
anaconda?
other than
You
that,
might get some
Serco.
replies you didn't want.
It's probably A for E or Serco or something
But Queen
like that,
Victoria's
you know.
looking down, saying, "Where's Albert? I need him. Stuff
Yeah.
him again."
Well,
Because I'm sure she named
That's
the
going to be the
snake
cry
after
from
him.
Dispatch Box now, isn't it? Because they're
Yeah.
reflecting William Hague criticised his Labour predecessor as stripping the Foreign Office library of 6,000 books.
So it's a rather
Albert is
lonely
still there.
library, just Albert hanging around the shelves. And I'm rather sad that we can't see him. I feel that Albert should now be put on public views. We can all have a
Well,
look at him.
we shall all have to have a trip to the Foreign Office to see him, but meanwhile we'll wave goodbye to him. But thank you very much
Thank you
indeed for your
so much.
selection. Great to see you. We'll see you again soon. Coming up, we'll have all the latest for you and the latest from the US too.